In today's video, I'm going to go over why it's a bad reason to, I suppose, add new movements in the middle of the season, or add novelty movements, or I suppose do a big change to the program, or bring in something you may not have done in a while. So, in the off season, something I make people focus on quite a bit is in the early, I suppose, in the early parts of the off season, and when we can get away with it in the preseason. This thing that I suppose some people would call it novelty, I would call it exposure to different movements and different tools. So I would like people to, be able to use a trap bar, conventional deadlift, sumo deadlift for pressing motions. I'd like them to be able to do different variations from strict overhead press to push jerk, things like that. And the reason being is when you come into the season, I want you having this big wide toolbox. So for example, if you get a bit of a dead leg, or you have some movement limitations, or your range of motion is affected in the middle of a season due to a knock, I don't want your first time to be a box squat in the middle of the season. I want you to have done it before, have a kind of point of reference of what weight to go to, things like that. Something that you can easily ship in and ship out as you need, because we all know during a season things change, injuries happen, both from contact and both from soft tissue, and it's important to be able to adapt to the situation. Even the days of games and trainings and things like that change, so it is important to be able to adapt to that. And what I'm seeing a lot lately is people are kind of bringing in this novelty to the week or two before their biggest game. So let's say, for example, someone's lower body standard day has been box squats, Romanian deadlifts, and they might do some swings or some single leg box squats or some single leg split squats. And all of a sudden they kind of see, this other person who might be athletic or might be in the field do a variation of their program, and that person might copy it. So for example, I go online, I see someone throw up them doing maybe dumbbell Bulgarian split squats for 3 sets of 5 straight into single leg Bulgarian split squat jumps. So I think this is great. This is a great power session he or she has put up. That's what they're doing. That's what I'm going to do for this week leading into my game or the week before. So I implement that, and then all of a sudden, my number one, I haven't done it ever. Number two, maybe I have done it and it's been in the off season, and it's been a while. So that stimulus is going to catch me out. I know for a lot of you guys know the feeling of what it feels like to do Bulgarian split squats for the first time in a while. Even if you have been squatting heavy or split squatting heavy or doing any sort of lunge variation, they are different and they do catch you out if you bring in the volume too high. So for any movement like that, if you're going to just throw something in for novelty the week or 10 days leading up to the biggest game of the year, you're really asking for trouble. So you should be able to either manipulate the lifts you're used to. So for example, you could get that same outcome. So that the outcome there that person might be doing, it might be contrast training. You're doing a low dose of strength work, something that you'd be able to do maybe for 10 reps, but you're doing it for 5. There's a bit of tempo in there. You're coming down slow on the eccentric, you're exploding up, and then you're dropping the weights and going straight into this explosive jump variation. If you've been box squatting, you could basically manipulate the box squat to be able to get that sort of payback from that movement. You don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater and start bringing in new movements like a Bulgarian split squat or something you haven't done before. Really, in season, what you should be doing is, especially leading up to the biggest games, is depending on what you know. So really depend on the things you're used to, the things your body is accustomed to doing. Kind of bringing in any new movements or old movements or movements that haven't been done in a while, it could overstimulate you. It could take a couple of extra days or an extra day or two just to recover from, or just to, I suppose, feel good again. And the most important thing you need to do around this time of year is just feel good on the pitch. Everything else, like minimal effective dose, comes into play here hugely. Everything else should just be, you're just touching on the power, you're touching on a bit of strength, maybe you're touching on a little bit of upper body, you're touching on your plyometrics. You're not really going deep into anything. Everything is pretty handy. You're just manipulating the lifts you're used to. Like, for example, I've seen people before who maybe trap bar deadlift all year, And that's the lift they're accustomed to. And then all of a sudden, come the week or two of championship, they're trying to power clean from the ground because they've seen it's a great explosive movement or whatever. Or they're trying to do a sumo banded deadlift with the same weight they'd be doing on a trap bar. Or they're trying to do these variations that they're not accustomed to. And what happens is that stimulus may just knock you over the edge and will not really serve you well. So the main message of this is be careful when introducing new movements in the in-season, especially close to championship. I, in fact, would just avoid bringing in any sort of new movements unless it was at a really, really, really low threshold, really lightweight, body weight even to start if possible, or the sort of lightest weight you can get just to go through the movement patterns and make sure that your body is accustomed to it before you start to implement it a bit more. Then for those of you as well, I saw this question pop up on a few different pages, and it was about, people who don't do any gym work, but they maybe decide the week or two of a championship before they're going to, kick in. Maybe they do the odd session here or there, but, they're going to go 2 or 3 times a week for these days. To be honest, at this stage, too late. I would avoid that. I would keep doing what you're doing, be it if it's 1 session every 10 days, 1 session every 2 weeks. The last thing you want to do is put yourself into this energy deficit or put yourself into this stressed environment that you cannot recover from and cannot perform at. So, main message, be careful introducing new movements into the season and play it safe, play with what you know. Use the off-season, pre-season and early part of the season to kind of adapt to all these different tools, to expose yourself to these different movements. And then later on down the line, if you do want to implement any of them, at least you'll have a bit of a base built. You'll know what numbers to go for and you'll know what things feel like.